There are two things I wanted to talk about. I just told Mark that. The first is that line. I spent a long time trying to learn how to paint a line with a brush. And that's what Indian miniaturists do. I was in India in 1997. I went to India on I went to India on Michael's Fulbright with a suitcase filled with oil paints, and I was going to paint too. And when I got there, we went to a mountain village called Chamba, where Michael was going to work with a sculptor. And he had a friend who was a miniature painter, and he said, "What are you doing with those oil paints? Let me show you how to paint." Well, I've been teaching painting for years. No, let me show you how to paint. And he pulled out these little squirrel hair brushes and paints that he'd actually made himself, which he showed. I never really learned how to do it. His favorite paints were these little Indian gouache paints in little bottles. And I learned how to make water, and I learned how to make lily pads, and I learned how to make, what else? My favorite thing was water. And the thing is I had to learn how to hold my hand so I could make a brush stroke that was not wiggly and that just went from small to big to small to big like that. And I've been doing that since the day VJ taught me years ago. And I just wanted to talk about lines. They're very important. You've got, when you make a line, you've got to sort of feel it moving. It's like dancing. It's very much like dancing. And of course, I'm talking about miniature painting. I'm not talking about abstract expressionism right now. But there are a lot of contemporary artists also that you see. You can go to a museum and you see how they use the line. And the thing the line does when you work with it as if you're working with a dance is it brings you within. It helps settle your physiology. And it's a beautiful thing. Now the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is really important to me, which I work on all the time, is honesty. If you're going to paint, you've got to be honest. You've got to be honest about what you're doing. You've got to be honest that you're doing it for yourself. Who is the self? I mean the self. You're doing it for all of creation. You're doing it for the self. I remember I was very fortunate to become sort of friends with Agnes Martin, who's quite a well-known artist who's passed away. And she said to me, she said, if you love what you're doing, other people will love it too. And you've got to have that love. And you cannot paint for anyone else. You've just got to know that. If you're going to paint, you've got to paint for yourself. If you're going to draw, you've got to draw for yourself. You can't do it because this is the style or that is the style. But you also have got to give in and learn how to paint and how to draw. And this is why we come to Bill, to learn how to make a line, to learn how to see, and to learn how to put what we see down or what we feel down. And at some point, you start working just with what you feel. And for me, it's not, I would love to be an abstract expressionist and just put my feelings out. But for some reason, I just can't do it. I like images, and I like designs. I've always loved designs. I love fabric, and I love lines. And I don't like to use too many colors, although recently I've been using a lot of colors. I'm not a colorist painter. I just like that little, and I like to be really honest, and it's sometimes hard to be honest. I mean, with some of these paintings that you sort of pass by, those are the ones that I did because somehow I felt I had to do them or something. But for those where you stop and you go, oh, that means something to me, it's because it meant something to me too. And if you want your paintings to mean something to someone, They've got to mean something to you. That's really important. I'm talking to artists right now. I apologize to the rest of you, but you know, I just, you're all artists, I know. And Joey's wearing something right now that was made, I think, by an artist. This gorgeous shawl. I mean, anyone that could crochet like that, or anyone that could make anything like this. This is from a tribal. What country, Michael? Is it Argentina?
No, I think that's from Peru.
Oh, God.
But it might be from Ecuador.
Ecuador, that's what I was thinking. It's definitely Ecuadorian, yeah. But anyway, I mean, this person was an artist. They loved what they were doing, and they obviously... But there was an interesting thing that happened to me in India. I've been in India a lot, and I spent quite a bit of time in Jaipur, where most of the artists are, or many of the miniatures are. And they all learned to paint with the line and everything. And then they learned to make paintings for the tourists. Mm-hmm. And they're horrible. I mean, Mark can tell you. I mean, they're just like second rate. And you don't have that feeling. But I was very fortunate to be with a great miniature painter named Banu Sharma. He's passed away about, 8 years ago? And I just want to show you one last thing. He would be painting, he always painted Krishna, and he always painted beautiful women. That's all he cared about, love. And it was really deep in his heart. And he'd hold his painting like this, because he'd have it on a board, and he'd have his little squirrel hairbrush. He'd go like this, and he'd go, Krishna. And then he'd sit down and meditate, and then he'd come back up again. Oh, Krishna. So the man was obviously going within with every stroke, and his paintings are divine, and they really are. I mean, actually, Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy discovered him and had a show of his work in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. I mean, he's so divine. But he is, I mean, he's not a, quote, contemporary painter. He's an illustrator. But he does beautiful work, just beautiful, and it's all from his heart. And that's what I wanted to talk about, and that's all I have to say.
But I bet we have some questions from the audience, and that we won't tire her out because...
You don't have to tire me, I'm fine. I'm so happy to be here, yes.
Well, you talked about honesty.
Yes.
And how does that work in action, in the action of your painting?
Just go in. Agnes Martin once said to me, she said, ask yourself, she said, your voices will tell you. Do I want red? Yes. Do I really want to use red? Yes. Do I really want to use red? No. But if you ask 3 times and you get 2 yeses, you're going to use that red. I mean, it's like, no matter what you do in the world, you've got to ask yourself. Yeah. Or you're going to make mistakes. It's very simple. And you've got to listen to yourself. It's very easy not to listen to yourself. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's okay.
Well, there's so much coming from without.
No, it's a beautiful thing, just to listen to yourself. And that's...
I think this is like a hugely important point you're making about honesty.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it a lot. I was thinking, what am I going to talk to them about? But, you've got to be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself about everything you do. And I think we have some really wonderful artists in this town. And the reason why is because they go within. And they ask themselves, is this what I really want to do? I don't want to paint a Coke bottle. Is this what I really want to do? I mean, just, what do I really want? And then you look at it and say, does this make me happy? Am I going to leave this black spot here? Does that make, yeah, but I like this better. You've got to ask yourself, and yourself will tell you. It's so simple. It's so simple. And to me, the painting is truly a meditation. I mean, not that I don't meditate, but painting is a real meditation because you're doing that thing. You have to go in. You have to say, is this right? You can't be lazy. You just can't be lazy. Except in the very beginning when you're learning. And you've got to learn. And that's important. You've got to have the technicalities down. You know, how to use a pencil, how to use a brush, how to use a crochet hook. You know, it's really important. How to make those, you know, I just love Rosie's shop where everybody's in there knitting these beautiful things. Where's this? Anyway. There you are, Dolly. Yeah, I mean, you know, she's got a lot of techniques in her hand. And she's gotten to a point now where she can do something, make something, and still be free inside and ask herself. It's really important. And I'm only stressing this because I go through it all the time myself. Is this really what I want? Is this really what I'm doing? I mean, I remember Agnes Martin told me she half of all the paintings she made. And I'll tell you, I would throw away a lot more if I didn't have a husband who wouldn't let me. Yeah.
I personally experienced that change when I got here in Fairfield. Before I used to paint different characters and they were kind of fermented, sometimes obscure, and people love it.
Yeah.
You know, in those places that people are stressed out. But right here in Fairfield seems to be different. And I'm trying to explain them that artists, they have a responsibility. Because those images we're putting out, people are receiving it. Mm. So there's a way to explain them that we are responsible for the message we're bringing out.
You can only
out of the bubble of Fairfield.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, you can only be responsible to yourself. And if your heart likes it, then that's great. If your heart doesn't care for it, then it's not worth it. And that's when you might be putting something out that isn't so positive or so good for the rest of the people. I mean, I don't know if these are good for people. I don't think about it. I just, like I'm looking at this one right here with the circles, that one you're looking at. I mean, to me, the most important thing was to get those lines. I mean, I was just having so much fun doing those little thin lines going up like this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Charlotte, thinking about things that have happened to you and how about things that have happened to you.
Yeah.
It seems like one of the important things that happened to you many decades ago was that you hitched up with the madman. And I see a lot of the motifs and things, and your art is very much your art, Michael's art is very much his art, but after this many decades, there's some kind of crossover, and I wonder if you just talk a little bit about living with the madman.
Well, you know, I must say, I was the daughter of an engineer and football player, and my mother was a dress designer and teacher. And they really wanted me to, you know, toe the line, make money, be a good teacher. So I became a high school art teacher, which was okay, but I would rather knit. I used to knit. I loved knitting. And then I met Michael, and we fell in love, and his parents were really devoted artists. I mean, wonderful people. And they wanted, you know, they wanted Michael to continue. And not only that, they adopted me and inspired me. And that's where it came from. His parents were just, I mean, I love my parents dearly, but they did not inspire me to be an artist at all. As a matter of fact, you know, these don't look very much like landscapes, do they? No. You know, they're landscapes of my mind. They're not landscapes. And they would have liked me to paint landscapes if I was going to do anything. But I could never figure out how to go back. It was just too confusing. You know, there's too much brain work in it. I can't use my brain when I paint. It's as simple as that. I can use my brain in the beginning. So, okay, we'll figure it out. You know, this is going to be cut this way, or, you know, this is the geometry of the thing, or I'm using this template or this. But then once I've done that, it's got to come from here, and that's it. Otherwise, I just leave the painting. I mean, I've got about 50 paintings at home or more that I can't finish. Because I've got to have that feeling inside. And the other thing about it is that when I was 42, I'm 71 now, But when I was 42, I got quite ill. And it lasted for many, many years until last month when I decided that's the end of it. And I used my painting as medicine. It was real medicine. It's like people go to the Dome for medicine. Well, I used to go to the Dome and fall asleep, and it wasn't exactly medicine. But now, it's like if I take that paintbrush and I make one of those lines, my heart just goes in, and I feel that feeling that one has when one meditates. It's lovely. So it is a kind of medicine for me. And it's a necessity, actually, and I think Dolly might be able to say the same thing about her work. I make you cry. It's true, you know. I mean, when someone finds something like that, it's your medicine. And it's helped a lot. That's all I can say. And that's why I think I have got to be honest about my work. C'est la vie? Yes?
Why are so many of your paintings symmetrical?
I like that. I like geometry. It was my favorite math course in high school. It's easy for me. I don't understand. That's not symmetrical right there. Yes.
I have an idea. Perhaps the symmetry pleased your father.
Yes, you're right.
Just the symmetry.
You're absolutely
Not
right.
anything else.
You're absolutely right. The only thing is he's never seen any of these paintings. I'm afraid he died a little too early. But yes, my father used to go to bed instead of reading a book like most of us. He would try to solve math problems. He just
Oh my
loved it.
gosh.
So I mean, it could really be from him. That's a beautiful answer.
Charlotte,
Yes, dear.
you said in the beginning that you couldn't do abstract expression, and I think you meant something very particular. But
I mean,
for
I
me,
just can't just throw paint.
Just feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because your work, to me, has got the intimacy of a little bit of reference of the world, and yet the complete, unmanifest, the abstraction.
Yeah, I wish I could, but I can't. I mean, I look at Basquiat, and I could never do that.
So when you say abstract, you meant?
I meant just completely throwing paint. I can't do that.
That's a specific school of art, abstract expressionism. That's
Oh.
action painters.
Action painters, yes.
Charlotte, when you talk about this work and your older work, do you feel a big difference between, what you felt in that earlier work and when you came into this?
I gotta tell you, between the time when I met Michael and the time when I started doing this, I would pray every day for a way to make painting. I literally prayed because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I wanted to know what I wanted to do. And not until I went to India and met Banu and Vijay Sharma, who are two fabulous miniaturists, did I realize that it was their technique that would bring me to what I wanted to do. I used to knit. I could knit only so many sweaters. Then I started, and it takes too long. And then, not that these don't take long, and then I was knitting those big knitted hangings. But, I mean, what do you do with them? I mean, I did sell them, but they weren't going to, they just didn't please me. And then, of course, I was using a knitting machine, which is great fun, but it doesn't make your heart feel so good because it makes a noise. Like, you know what I'm talking about. And knitting with needles does do that. Knitting with needles is just wonderful. But for some reason, I just knew that wasn't for me, and I just kept praying. I'd go to bed at night, and I just said, dear God, please help me to find a way to make art. Please help me to find a way. And finally, when I was 55, it came to me. And I wasn't young. I didn't get to go to school to do it or anything, which would have been nice. But thanks to these wonderful, wonderful men in India.
But
And my
also,
husband for making me go to India.
Charlotte, Agnes Martin also, I feel, had a profound influence on your work. I can see her pulsating through some of this stuff. And can you talk a little bit more about the relationship?
Well,
Visually,
it was an
at
interesting
least?
thing. I had done a lot of knitted hangings, and she came to MIU when Peter Erskine was there, and Michael was teaching. I had a baby, so I wasn't teaching then. And I'd been doing knitted hangings. Johnny was like a year old, and I'm making these knitted hangings. It was wonderful. She would help me. She'd put the little pins in the pincushion, and, you know. And Agnes came, and Agnes is a very funny person. She didn't want to talk to anyone. She just gave her talks to the students, and that was it. But she did go around and look at all the artists' artwork. And she looked at Michael's. I don't remember what she said. She looked at Peter's, and she said, Emperor's New Clothes. I mean, if she'd said that to me, I would have fallen through the floor.
Yeah.
And she came in and looked at my knitted hangings, and said, go to New York. You need a gallery right now. Now, I did go to New York. I walked into Pace. They looked at me as if I was crazy. I had a baby like this I'm pushing. I said, I'd like to show my work. They said, what? And after that, I just kept looking for a way to paint. Finally, we'd go to visit her. She lived in New Mexico. And we'd go to visit her once every 2 years or once a year, whenever. And we always had a wonderful time because she had said such beautiful things. And I took my newest paintings to her, and I don't have any. Oh, you know where there are some down in the stairway there? And I showed her some of my more recent paintings, and she looked at them and she said, oh, this is nice. I'd like this. And I thought, Charlotte, give it to her. Oh, she said, I know what she said. She said, I'll swap you. I said, oh, I'd love one of your paintings, Agnes. But would Pace let me have it? Pace is her gallery, big-time gallery in New York. And she said, well, I don't think so. I said, you can have it. And so she took my painting right then and there and put it on the wall. And the next thing I heard, I was in India, and Madeline sent me an email saying, Agnes has passed
Before
on.
that, you went to visit her again,
Oh,
about 2 years later.
yeah.
And the painting that you'd given her was still hanging on her living room wall right behind where she sat.
Wow.
It was very sweet.
Oh.
What did she say? I forgot.
She said that it's on Charlotte's website. I wrote down what she said, but she said something like she had gotten a great deal out of it. That it had been
Comfort was the word she used. She said,
to
this
her.
has been a
She got-
comforting painting.
Oh.
And it's sort of like, that's where I was at.
And
I
then-
was wanting that.
Then we went back to India, and a couple of weeks later, she did.
Yeah, and that's when Madeline contacted me. And this is a beautiful story. We live near the Ganges in Varanasi. And when I heard that Agnes was gone, I went down to send some little flowers down the Ganges, because they have these little banana boats that they put a candle in with flowers, and they cost like 2 rupees, 3 rupees. And they're these little children that used to sell them to me. I mean, really poor little kids. And every day I'd buy one from one of the other kids. I'd say, no, I bought yours yesterday, I'm going to buy yours today. And so I went down to the Ganges, and I got all those kids together, and I said, I'm going to buy candles from all of you right now. So we lit all our candles, and we put the candles in the water, and I said to the kids, now say goodbye to Agnes. And me and all, like 5 or 6 of these little urchins were all going, bye Agnes, bye Agnes. So thanks to Madeline, that's how we said goodbye to me, one of the most wonderful painters we've had. She did very simplistic things, just lines and grids. And you know, that has...
I would say one of the best videos that's out there is With My Back to the World. That's about Agnes Martin. It's
Oh,
just
is it?
like-
You
just
show it?
flows. I've shown
good.
it twice.
Oh, good.
It's a great thing. People should watch it.
There's
And you
also
know-
a wonderful new book about Agnes Martin.
I told Matthew to buy it.
It's written by Arnold Lynch, who's the director of Pace, and it has reproduced in it about 20 of in facsimile of Agnes's lectures that are sort of bound in, they were written in these little stenographer's notebooks, and they're in there, and the plates are remarkable. You can really almost see her paintings, which were typically 4x4, 5x5, in miniature. They had some extraordinary printer do the job, and it's a lovely, lovely book. Not cheap, but
Anyway, any other questions?
the library should have it. There should be one here.
Oh, someone's gonna buy it for you, Bill.
Randy?